Welcome back to the Chōten Podcast, where we talk to the founders, innovators, and thinkers shaping the future of business and explore how technology and AI are changing the way we learn, lead, and grow. Today, I'm joined by somebody who's completely reimagined business education. I'm joined by John Cousins, CEO and creator of MBA ASAP. John has built one of the most accessible and practical business education platforms out there, distilling the essential lessons of an MBA into clear, simple frameworks that anyone can really understand, and has helped countless entrepreneurs accelerate their career without having to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on that degree. John, welcome to the show. I'm excited.
Thank you very much, Abid. It was a wonderful introduction. I really appreciate it. It's great to be here. It's great to meet you.
Awesome. So, John, let's just jump right in. You've had an incredible career. You've been a CEO, an author, an educator, an entrepreneur. So, tell us, what brought you to MBA ASAP? What got you started here?
Well, thanks, Abid. Well, let's see. As you say, I started out as an engineer, electrical engineer, and I worked in rock and roll recording studios at first, and then in television broadcasting for the American Broadcasting Company, which back in the day, there was 3 networks, and they sort of put on all the television production. And I was a audio video systems engineer, designed and built facilities for the network. And from that, I really wanted to end up creating my own company and being my own sort of boss and making technical products. And so that's basically why I went back to business school. And I went to the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania, and studied finance and marketing, entrepreneurship, all those things. And then that's basically what I did after that was I started a bunch of companies, ended up taking 2 of them public, and ran those for 15 years as CEO and CFO. And then wound up starting to teach. My sister was teaching finance. She was a credit analyst and things for AT&T. But she was teaching finance at night at a university, and I thought, that's so cool. So I started looking around and got some appointments and teaching. And as I started to teach, realizing that, having started companies and all that, and then, looking at and going through the MBA program, and, the textbooks are like this thick. It's like 800 pages of accounting, 800 pages of finance, 800 pages of antiquated marketing techniques, stuff like that. And I realized, wow, I never used, as a practical thing, I never used all of this kind of stuff in my day-to-day. You just don't have time to make all of these. They might be academically interesting and theoretically interesting, but as far as practical tools, you don't use them all the time. And I could see that my students were really struggling with trying to parse the forest from the trees. They had so much information that they really didn't know, what was incredibly important on a day-to-day basis and what would be sort of like interesting, and maybe you might encounter it once or twice in your career, or maybe not at all. So I started to boil things down, and that's really what was the genesis of MBA ASAP, like a Master of Business Administration, ASAP, as soon as possible. And so that's what this is basically a distillation of, through my experience, the lens of my experience, what is really important and how to teach it quickly and in a clear manner so that you don't get blasted by all this information. You're trying to drink through a fire hose and everything it seems important, equally important, and it's really not. So that's basically how I started it. And what really happened too, like you say, is that technology was just a big lever for me. I've been started about 12 years ago and been working on it. And really, it's been the platforms that I could sort of disseminate my material and reach people all over the world. One of the great ones is, Amazon has Kindle Direct Publishing, where you can write down your thoughts and basically on a Word document or something, upload it as a manuscript and create books and sell them all over the world. That was the first thing I did. And then I started to just record my classes with my iPhone, and stick it up there. And I'd be at the whiteboard and talking, and then come back and edit it on a inexpensive editing platform, like iMovie, and then upload those. The first platform that I really started to use, and it became very popular for me, is called Udemy. And that's a platform where you can upload course material, and then they You can market it as a course, and they market again all over the world. And I've had students, over 40,000 students on that platform in 167 countries, which just blows my mind. They're just all over the world. People that are interested in understanding business education they have, everybody has aspirations, all these people, to become entrepreneurs, to better themselves, get up the career ladder, whatever it may be. And I've just been really heartened by that all these people are interested in this, even in places like the Maldives and Madagascar or Bolivia, just all over. And that's been really, really fun to communicate and to engage with people all over the world. And so from then, I migrated over and started my own platform, and that's MBA-ASAP.com, and put my course on there, and actually translated my course into several different languages. The technology has been just incredible that I couldn't have done this 20 years ago because there just wasn't we couldn't do this, what we're doing right now 20 years ago. Suddenly there's these tools to record and make podcasts and then disseminate them all over the world. And when I was working for ABC Television, that took an incredible amount of infrastructure and, capital expense and, all these assets to deliver something internationally. Now we have the internet and we have all these different tools to do that. So it's just been a fun ride. And now with artificial intelligence, as you said, that's the next sort of frontier. I love leveraging those tools to help me to write and to organize my thoughts and ideas and to make images. It's just incredible.
It really, truly is. That's amazing. I know, your main thing was to disseminate all of that information in an MBA and provide it in a way that's much quicker, much faster, much cheaper. So what do you think is sort of broken about the current model of going to get higher education and getting that grad degree and getting that MBA?
Well, and that's a great question. I went through that program and, I was working at ABC at the time and decided I wanted to get my MBA. And I had a young family at the time too. And so I could have stayed at my job and maybe I was working in New York, lived in New York. I could have went to Columbia or NYU or any of these good schools, and they have night programs and could have done that. But I thought, my gosh, if I'm working all day and then I'm going to go to school at night and then I have to do the homework on the weekends, plus all this traveling for my job, I just, it's too much. I wouldn't have time for my family. So I was trying to balance that. And I decided, okay, I'm going to make a clean break, go back to school, go to a 2-year program where it's full time. I'll treat it like a job. I'll go over there from 9 to 5 to the campus, come back and do my studying. And I'll have time to just focus on that and really, really learn and understand these things. And it seemed like, even now in retrospect, it seems like that was a good choice. Now, if I went to night school, ABC would have paid for it too. So that would have been another benefit. So I ended up, leaving my job. So I didn't have income. It cost me, a couple $100,000 to do that, plus all my living expenses and for my family and all for 2 years. And I ended up digging myself a hole of close to $500,000, $500,000. And after that, I thought, how am I going to get out of the, recover from that? I'm going to have to make a whole bunch more money. And it's probably going to even take me a decade or something to really pay that back. Under the best of circumstances. And so I started wondering, is that really the best way to do this? And so that kind of idea was stuck in the back of my head. I think it was a great experience. I learned a ton, but there must be another way, not maybe a better way, but just a different path for people that can't. First of all, you have to geographically be able to move somewhere and attend the courses, and then you have to pay all that money and not work or whatever. So that's when I started to, think about, how could I do this better? And then as the technology came along where I could just make short video segments and write short books and things like that and deliver with PowerPoints and things like that at the whiteboard, deliver this material in a way that people could, watch a video, a 5 or 10 minute video once a day if they wanted even, and maybe take, 3 or 6 months to learn the material. And the great thing about video too, from a pedagogical standpoint, is that you can watch it over and over. If you're in a classroom with a real, there's a real life person there.
Only one time.
You sort of look out the window for a minute, you start daydreaming, and all of a sudden, I haven't been listening for the last 5 minutes, which happens to us. you can't go back and rewind and say, what did I miss there, whatever, or even if it was a little bit confusing and you have to play through it 2 or 3 times to really understand it, you just can't do that with a real person. And that is, I think, a real benefit of video, because you can go back and repeat the lesson until you really, really understand the concepts. And so I found that there's actually even some benefits other than being in a classroom that you can take advantage of through video and reading and things like that. You can also read a passage 5 times if you need to until you really, really understand the material. And that's what I also wanted to do, is not sort of have people breeze through something and kind of get 60% of the material, but to really go through and engage with it and understand. And at the end, come out with 95, 98% of the knowledge, ingrained in them, where they can really start to use this stuff and make it usable. So that's been that's been the I think that's sort of the difference. Not that it's a better way, but it's certainly a cheaper way, a faster way, and hopefully there's some teaching or pedagogical advantages too that people can take advantage of. And also for people, I've more than 30%, about a third of my students are from India, and places like that. And people that probably either live, out in the country or in places where they can't. But if you have an internet connection and a device, even a smartphone, a computer, whatever, you can access this material, and for a very reasonable price. So people can get this stuff wherever they are, and then hopefully just start leveling up their career and their opportunities and their optionality in the world, and start to think, oh, maybe I could do this, maybe I could do that. And that's hopefully another thing, that it gives people a set of tools and confidence that can help them to just feel more confident addressing any kind of business issues.
Right. Yeah, that's a great point. For example, myself, I went and gotten my MBA as well, spent the tens of thousands of dollars to go get it. But as you mentioned, there was the benefit of the online courses, the recorded lectures, the PowerPoints and books that I could read over and over again. So I think that definitely bridged a lot of the gap for me. I'm someone with ADHD. I can't sit in a lecture, for an hour and a half and just let it all sink in. And if I can do it, I can do it for one class, but I can't go and do it for the next class again, right? So as you mentioned, it's a really incredible thing to have the ability to just rewatch and rewatch. Now, one of the things I will say is that going and getting that MBA, there was a lot of stuff I didn't need to know. There's a lot of things that, to this day, I haven't been used once, the general ed stuff, like the history of marketing, like, So
Exactly.
it's really important. And I see with MBA ASAP, you've really chosen what's the most important and put that into one course, essentially. So kind of talk to us about that. What are kind of the core things, core skills and lessons that founders truly should understand before starting a business, or when they first are building their business the first couple of years?
Well, and first, I think I would encourage everybody to start a business, because it's just a great way to discover things about yourself and to learn. And if you can even make a second or third revenue stream for yourself, it gives you another safety net, so you're not so beholden to a job or something like that. Even if it doesn't become your primary way of making your money, even it's small, but maybe you could use that money then to just invest or whatever. I think that's really super important to just start and try to make a business. And nowadays, with the tools we have, it's really relatively cost effective to start something. You can just write a book basically by just sitting at on your word processor and writing something down, and then publish it on Amazon, or make some videos of something that you're really interested in and publish them on YouTube, and start to cultivate an audience. There's 2 parts to business. Well, there's more than that, but when you think, the inside part and the outside part, and like you say, marketing and branding and those kind of things, communicating with customers, understanding what they want so that you can build something that people really want. That's kind of the outside parts. And so that's really important to understand in a systematic way how to go about finding customers, understanding what they want, making something, a product or service that people really desire, that they need. And there's really only two ways to do that, right? Either you're fixing a problem that you probably have yourself, or you know that people have. If there's some way you can overcome friction in the world, like fix a problem, or you're creating delight in some way, a video game, some entertainment thing, or music, or whatever it is. So those are really the only two ways that you can make something. It's either it's going to relieve pain or create pleasure. And so that's all the outside stuff. So marketing in a general sense is that way. And then on the inside part, there's operations, logistics. How do you get vendors and make something, or develop something and distribute it to the world? And now we can do that through, all online kind of things. Make a digital product that's just a download or something that people pay for. And then you can disseminate that anywhere. And it doesn't matter if 5 people want it or 1 million people want it. There's no more cost to doing it if you've made something that's just a digital download, or digital first type of product. And then the other part, I think that I focus on, because I think it's really important and a lot of people don't understand it, and it's absolutely critical, and it's relatively clear cut to teach, straightforward to teach, finance and understanding accounting and finance. I remember when I first was thinking about business, I was in college, and my girlfriend, her father was a really, he ran a plastics company and had all this stuff. And I asked him one time, what do you think I should learn about business? I really want to start thinking about that. And I was thinking he'd say something cool like, strategy and strategic thinking, or marketing and all. And he said, accounting. You got to know accounting, because that's the lifeblood of business. The money comes
Right.
in, the money, your expenses, and what's left over, and you have to know and control the money. And I thought, that's kind of boring. So I never really, for a long time, didn't, take that seriously. But I can say now, it is the most important thing to kind of, as a fundamental thing, is to understand just the basics of accounting. You don't have to become an accountant, and then understand the end product of accounting are the reports, the financial statements. So to really be able to read the 3 financial statements, a balance sheet, an income statement, and a cash flow statement, and understand what they mean, then you can look at any business and sort of understand the health of that business, where the money's coming in, where is it going, what the big expenses are, and how much is left over, and see, what the assets are, what the company owns, and how those assets are financed through equity and debt. And you can really get a sense and look at cash flow and see, is this company actually making cash, and is it solvent? And that kind of a skill set, not that you have to actually do all that, because I'd encourage anyone to, kind of find an accountant that can create those things for you and manage the books, maybe in QuickBooks or something like that. But you really do relatively quickly have to get your head around and handle on where the money's coming in. Hopefully you're having some revenues, sales, and then what you're spending that money on, and then what's left over to pay yourself and to grow the business with. I think that those things are incredibly important to know. So that's really what I focus on, is the numbers side of business, accounting and finance, and especially understanding financial statements, so that you can even talk to an accountant, and understand what the heck they're supposed to do for you and how they're going to get it done. And then if you start to think about maybe raising money from external sources like investors or something, you really have to know what you're giving up in exchange for that money and things like that. But, these days, what I've come to with MBA ASAP, what I really like is being a solopreneur, really being a solo operator. I work with some outside contractors that are just great, a marketing and a development person, and a CFO accountant type, and then someone to manage my community, the MBA ASAP community. And so you need some people to help, but for the most part, I like to say it's just me and the robots. I try to automate as much as I can, and you can have all these tools now to just automate things and make the process work, 24/7. And without a bunch of labor and those, because those things get expensive. Right. You still have to pay for some platforms, but they're relatively much less expensive than actual employing people. So I've really liked that. Over the arc of my career, I think of it sometimes, I started out working for really great companies and had great bosses and loved it, but I kind of chafed at having to show up in office every day. And then they'd say, okay, we need you to go to this town. And I'd go there for a couple of weeks with my suitcase. And they directed my life more than I wanted it directed. So I was like, I want to be my own boss and all that stuff. I don't like having bosses. So that was the first thing I did, was got rid of bosses, and I want to be my own guy, And then I became running companies. And then over time, you have issues with partners, you have issues with investors, because they just want to make you get money for them, right? And so you're basically hiring yourself a boss to a degree. And then got tired of managing a bunch of people. Everybody has issues and stuff, and it's really kind of hard to manage people. And having big customers, you have to kiss up to them, and they can sort of dictate which way the products are going to go. And also, what I liked about what I did was I little by little got rid of all those different components until it's just me and lots of small customers that can vote. Either they like the product or not, and I can see where the engagement is, because I have all these tools, and I can say, oh, they really like this lecture, but this one, they fall off about halfway through. I better go back and refine that one. So it helps me to make everything better, because at the end of the day, it's not what I want and what I want to do. I really feel that I need to make what the customers want. And what the customers want, even they may tell me what they think they want, and it's not what they want. But if I can actually look at how long they engage in these different things, then I can see, oh, that's really how they're using this. And so I can sort of over time polish these things and make them better based on that feedback. And so that's been really great and really freeing. And then I feel like I get all the satisfactions of running a company and seeing that engagement without having a lot of the, palace intrigue or drama that goes around, all these different elements, because people have different ideas about what something should be, what their, how much they put in compared to somebody else. And so there's lots of things that I found that it's been really great to be able to not participate in those kind of elements. And it's only because we have all of these incredibly automated tools that we can use now. It's just remarkable.
It is truly amazing. There's this notion now, especially since the introduction of AI tools in 2022, that we're going to see within the next decade, in my opinion, we're going to see the first solo billionaire. I truly believe it. I really do. Because the things that, automations can do for us, especially when you're starting in the beginning stages of a business, if you already have a staff and you're trying to introduce a lot of these tools, you may be a little too reliant on these systems that you have in place, or it might be too much of an overtaking to completely replace all the systems that you have built. And then also you have to worry about the people that you made these connections with, these people that you employed for years and years and years. But when you're first starting and you make everything with automations and AI in the beginning, you never have to worry about that stuff, right? And I think I truly do believe we're going to see the first solo billionaire in the next decade, just because of how insanely amazing the tools are becoming, how easy they're becoming to use, how if you can really understand all of the tools, you can understand everything. Because there's a tool for everything. They might not be great right now, but there really is a tool for everything. And that's
I totally
really
agree.
Yeah, that's really what got me into the whole space in the first place. I had a lot of negative, connotations of AI in the beginning. I was pretty terrified of it. I was like, oh no, this isn't going to be great. But I really had to open my eyes and truly, see it for what it is and try to focus on the positives of it. Obviously, there are going to be negatives of it, but it's been very interesting to see. And now that, AI is my baby, my business, it's been an amazing experience to see everything that it can do. And I'm honestly in awe every single day of all the stuff that it helps me with. You brought up a really important thing that I've been actually screaming at my friends, is that everyone should start a business. And I think, honestly, starting a business is probably the best personal development and self-growth type of endeavor you can have, whether that be, like you said, an entertainment business, if you're a musician, if you're trying to be a content creator, if you're trying to do any sort of thing. It is truly a test of self-development and improvement, because there are so many things about running a business that you do not understand until you actually do it. You can watch all the YouTube videos and take all the courses, and until you actually do it, you're not going to understand it. So yeah, I've been screaming it at the top of my lungs. Like, everyone should try this. And it's really going to show you who you are. And if you can get past the initial 0 to 1 phase, Getting one from 1 to 10 is a lot easier, but that 0 to 1 is much, much, much harder. And it really tests you as a person.
No, absolutely. That's a great book, by the way, by Peter Thiel, the 0 to 1. Yeah, that idea that it's a beautiful thing. And it's like you say, you learn so much about yourself and you have to go through all these different processes. And it's like a great mirror. And also it's so satisfying if you do make that leap from 0 to 1, where you've actually created something out of nothing, out of an idea, that you've had. And suddenly you've figured out, how do I make this idea concrete? How do I make it into a real product or service that can actually benefit people? And if you have that idea and it's like, wow, I'm actually giving a benefit to people, what a great feeling, and then along the way, of course, you're going to, run into all kinds of problems and all kinds of challenges. But again, the obstacle is the way kind of thing. Each problem is something that then you learn and go through. And then you have the confidence that I know how to do this and everything's figure outable. I can figure out whatever it is. Yeah, it's just remarkable. And yeah, so I agree with you totally, Abid, that everybody should start a business, and because it's a great personal development thing. And then you can figure out, oh, I know this, but I don't really know that. And you can start to build up those skill sets around what you may lack. And until you start doing things, you really just don't know, and it's the journey. It's the journey, really. Not even like, I really want to start a business because in 3 years, I want to have a Lamborghini and a mansion and all that kind of stuff. It's all about that journey of personal development. Like, I now know how to create something that can be of benefit in the world. That's I think the most empowering and wonderful feeling someone to have. And that's really the angel's pay, Maybe you make some money through this, hopefully, but the real benefits, I think the real reimbursements are the ability to affect people's lives in a positive inflection point somehow. And it can be very tiny, but man, makes all the difference, difference to you and others. That's just a wonderful thing. And like you say, the AI tools are just getting better and better and more comprehensive. And like you say, some of them may not be really perfect right now, but we know we're on these exponential curves. We'll come back in 2 years and that tool is going to be like, my gosh. And it's being sprinkled across every type of industry and tool. So everything now has a little chatbot or AI component, recommendation engines in Netflix or Amazon for whatever, these kind of things that say, hey, if you like this, you may also like that, and actually gathering all that information. I've really been loving ChatGPT and the OpenAI tools, and also Anthropic and their tool Claude. Just remarkable interactions that I can have. I heard somebody say the other day that they use it as like an operating system for life. And I thought, that's what I'm using it for. I mean, I will ask like ChatGPT, how do I, program my sprinkler system for my irrigation in my garden? And I have this kind of a controller, and it'll give me, step-by-step kind of things to do. And I use that for just like everything. It's just amazing. And so nowadays, it's almost like when Google Maps came along and suddenly I felt like, wow, I never have to have the stress anymore of like, am I going to find this place I'm going to, this destination where I'm supposed to bring this rental car back to? Yeah. And all of a sudden now it's like, no, you just type it in. It takes you right there. I don't have to worry about that. Now I feel the same way about with these tools is I don't have that stress about, I have to figure out how to use this thing. I've had it for like 2 years. I never really start. And what do I do? And, just ask, how do I do this? Or if something breaks, how do I fix this? How do I place the filter in my, water filtration system? And you get exact answers how to do it. It's just like, oh my gosh, I don't have to worry about how to run my life anymore. Mm-hmm. So it's been, there's a lot of talk about is, the disruption of artificial intelligence going to take everyone's jobs, or is it going to, get, super intelligence, and all of a sudden we're going to be, slaves to these overmind, artificial intelligent overminds or something. And I think those are legitimate concerns, but what I found, like you were saying, I just have found it incredibly empowering to use as power tools and as sort of co-creators to bounce ideas off of and stuff. It's just, we're living in a great, great time. I mean, and starting a business, you can really start a business now with no money. If you just, even if you just want to start making some, if you want to do a cooking thing and you just get, your iPhone or whatever, your Android phone and record a little video and edit it and upload it to YouTube and, see what happens, see who responds.
Right, absolutely. I will say, I think with the advent and introduction of all of these AI tools that do make it much easier to start, that does also mean that there's going to be a lot more competition. So it really will, at the end of the day, even with all of these AI tools, it really will come down to the founder and the mindset and the abilities of the founder, and the ability to just keep going. The harder it'll become from going to 0 to 1, it'll be easier in the sense of like the tools you have to do and the things you have to do, but it'll be harder in the sense that you have a lot more competition. But with that being said, I think a lot of founders in the beginning, like you said, they're like, oh, in 3 years, I want that Lamborghini. I want that nice apartment. I want this mansion. I want all this stuff. Well, you don't really focus about, in the beginning, a lot of founders focus about that stuff. But really 0 to 1 is, hey, just make like 80K a year. Maybe make your first 6 figures. That's easy, regardless of how much competition that is. That could be only a few customers, right? So, that in itself is a thing that, yeah, sure, there's gonna be a lot more competition, but really it only takes a few. It only takes a few, and after that is when you can get to the big numbers.
That's true. With worldwide audiences that we can reach too, you can market to that long tail where maybe there's an interest in your thing with just a few people in this town, a few people in that town. But when you aggregate that all up across the world, wow, it becomes a pretty sizable audience. And you're right, you don't need, especially if you're using those kind of tools and you're a solo, operator, you don't need a lot of revenue to have a bunch fall to the bottom line where you can actually start to make a living off of that. There was that great old, Kevin Kelly had that thing about 1,000 true fans. If you have 1,000 true fans that are willing to give you $100 a year, that's $100,000 a year. that's all you really need. And you can find that type of audience, find your tribe, something that what you have to offer will engage with people. And you're right, it's going to come down to the founder and your personality, and we're all unique. So we all have something unique to contribute. And if you're just relying on the tools, well, then it becomes like a commodity because everybody has access to that tools, and you have to figure out some way to differentiate what you're doing to make it uniquely you. But that's what I think what the fun is too, and that's also a big part of the personal development. Like you really have to say, what do I have to offer? What is unique about me from my perspective that I find compelling, and hopefully there'll be some other people in the world that'll find that perspective useful and compelling and valuable, enough to become a customer.
Yeah. So you've spoken a little bit about the AI tools you use, ChatGPT, Claude. What other tools are you using in order to run your business right now?
Well, let's see. I email marketing tools, and I've gone through a bunch of them. ConvertKit, Mailchimp. Now I've been using Flowdesk and website tools. I like Webflow now, but there's all kinds of, ones that you could, Wix and things that, where you can build a website very quickly without having a lot of, having to know HTML and CSS and all those kind of things where you can just plug and play. So those kind of tools where you don't have to know a lot of coding and things. And then I've been actually I taught an entrepreneurship course through the university as a boot camp a week in the summer to 10 to 14-year-olds. And that was really super fun. And before I did that, I made a little video game called a lemonade stand. Here's the different things you need to make a lemonade stand. And I did all the coding through, now they call it vibe coding, where you don't have to actually code. And I did that with, I can't remember if it was Claude or ChatGPT now, but it was one of those tools, and just typed in, here's the program I want to write. And it helped me to develop it. I deployed it through Netify, and it actually was, all the kids could put it on their phones and started playing it. And so through that type of stuff too, where you can actually, you don't have to code anymore. You can just say, I'd like to, code up this application in Python, tell me how to do it, and it'll write the code for you, and it'll troubleshoot it. You can deploy it and actually make tools. Before you had to learn all the software development. Now you don't even have to be a software expert, just know what you want to do, and those tools will do it for you. I use all kinds of platforms for marketing, like Go High Level, which is an integrated platform, customer relations management platform.
Love Go High Level. I think it's amazing.
Do you? It's
love
amazing. Yeah, it's a great tool. And it's, with that tool, you can really just, you can have your email list, your SMS reach out kind of things. You can put courses on there. You can create a community through that.
I honestly don't see a reason to use Salesforce, HubSpot. Like if you're a small business, like Go High Level does all of that for relatively cheaper as well. So
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, it's a great tool, and there's lots, and they just keep coming out, with more and more different kinds of tools like that. And then I do a lot of advertising online, Google and Meta, Facebook and Instagram ads to drive people to create a funnel, where I'll give away a free book or something in exchange for their email address, right? And then have automated campaigns, say in Flowdesk or Mailchimp or something that's gives a bunch of information, and then also directs to my course after a while, or to the community. And I'm using Mighty Networks as the platform for my community. And that's a place where everybody gets together and just sort of, I have a bunch of courses on there, and I teach once a week live and stuff like that. And because what I tried to develop the community, started thinking, the courses and the books are great, but they're just in one direction. I teach and the people listen. And it would be great if there was that interaction, and also peer-to-peer interaction, where everybody could meet and discuss things amongst themselves too, and find value in that. So that's been a really fun platform too. So those are some. I mean, there's just so many. On the back end of my course, I have a bunch, and to then send out automated emails when people sign up, and host all the videos and things like that, and then a chat bot for people to talk back and forth with. I even made a negotiations course that is AI generated, so that you can role play with the AI. And it's an avatar of me, and role play all kinds of negotiation scenarios. Udemy has even introduced a role playing agent in their courses, where you can ask questions and stuff. It's like, okay, you're interviewing for an accounting job, and I made these ones. So here's the person you're going to interview with, and they're the CFO, and you go through like 10 minutes of talking to them. They ask questions, you have to respond in real time, and then based on what you respond, they ask questions that are pertinent. It's just remarkable. Yeah, the like I said, artificial intelligence seems to be sprinkled across all these different types of platforms to make them more interactive and more specifically germane to what people's interests are. And you see that in everything. And also in the tools that I have, like my negotiations class, it'll take what a student knows by what their answers are, and where it finds out that they may be lacking a little bit, it'll start to go through those type of issues a little bit more, so that it fills in the gaps in someone's knowledge. So just a remarkable, and I know there's going to be more and more better tools coming out. Like you say, we're on pace to see the first solo person make $1 billion business. And it was only like 10 years ago that a $1 billion private company was just like the remarkable thing, a unicorn. It was like, holy mackerel, somebody can make $1 billion valued company, and they don't need the crowdfunding of a stock market in order to do that. It can just support itself through venture capital, and then just support itself through its revenues. Now, $1 billion, private company is not even unusual. There's hundreds and hundreds of them. It's amazing.
what surprised you the most since the advent of AI, and how it's changed your business since you've started?
Well, that's a great question. What's really surprised me the most, I think, is even just lately, maybe in the last 6 months, because like you said, it was like November of 2022, GPT came out. It was like, whoa, what kind of tools are these? And then everybody else started catching up, Gemini, Google's tools, and then Claude. But recently, how much incredibly attuned to me the interactions are, that I ask a question, and some people say, oh, the tools they're too sycophantic, like that's a great idea, John. That's a blah, 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 and sort of like, always stroking you in those ways. But I found that, I can ask something and it comes back with something, and maybe a little bit different angle that I hadn't really thought of, and then kind of, develop that. So this sort of less like even a tool than a co-creator kind of thing, where it's actually what I'm getting fed back is just so interesting to me and so spot on that it can help to just keep going down that path and really developing things much, much faster than I could ever do it on my own. And I think even much better than I could do it on my own. So I think that's been the big thing, is like sort of feeling more like I'm in this sort of where it's a partnering relationship more than I'm going to tell you what to do, and then you're going to do something. It's more like, oh, this is interactive, and we're actually building something together that is just remarkable because it draws on everything, all the information that's out there, and very quickly codifies it together and finds out what's important and all. And also, I think it also gets over some of my own just biases or holes in my whatever my knowledge is, where it's like I'm just thinking about this, and all of a sudden, oh, it comes back with something that's dilated, a little bit bigger than my perspective was. It's like, wow, yeah, okay. And so I think that's been the most exciting part, is feeling that it's not even just a tool, but it has an agentic type of aspect to it that I'm finding really, really exciting.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is truly incredibly exciting. I will say that there is the valid argument and fear that there might be an over-reliance on AI. And I think as humans, we have to continuously make the choice on continuing. I actually talked to a previous guest of mine, Dr. Kari Salinas, and she talked about how we have to actively make the choice to continue creating, using AI as a tool, not as a crutch. I think that's incredibly important. Like I said before, is starting a business is one of the best personal development tools, personal development things you can do, right? But if you overly rely on AI, you become commodified. And that over reliance is very important it's very important to make sure you're not relying too much on those. Making sure that you're continuously keeping yourself sharp is very important. So
absolutely,
I want to hear your opinion
seductive.
On that. Yeah, I want to hear your opinion on that. Like, how do you keep yourself sharp and continuously make that choice to keep that human element there?
And that's a great point, Abid. The a couple of ideas about that. Really, sometimes I pull back and just go back to reading old books and being out in nature and all those kind of things that really gets me in touch with away from the artificial world. And then also, I mean, they do have a sycophant type of thing where it's like, oh, that's just great and all, and it's very seductive and easy to start thinking, wow, I must be great if Claude says I am, and to really stay sharp and stay honest. Even in when an emperor in Rome, when they'd have their triumphal marches through, they would have a person in the chariot with them that said, whispering in there, remember, you're a human, you're a person, because people get overwhelmed by all of the adulation they were feeling. And I think that's something we really need to watch out for. I've been hearing a lot about people having like romantic relationships with their AI avatar and feeling totally destroyed then when OpenAI or Claude or whatever changes the paradigm a little bit, and all of a sudden it's not responding in the same way. They feel like they've been divorced or ghosted by something. They really start to think that this is real. So there are dangers, that you can get too involved or too reliant. Like you say, use it as a crutch, use it to do everything. And that is a challenge, I think, that we all have to deal with, is to remain human, rely on our creativity, and then use these tools to amplify and speed up, expedite our creativity towards some sort of productive end, so that we're not just I can remember I had so many. I've even been doing this lately a lot, is going back to old projects that I had, ideas that I had that were really good. And they might have been when I was, 20 years old or something, and saying, you know what, that's really a great idea. Back then, I just thought it was a great idea. I wrote a little bit, sketched something out, and then shelved it because it seemed like it was going to be too complicated or hard or long or I got interested in something else, just never really got it to a place where it was finished, even if it's just a first draft of something that's really finished. And now I can go back and say, you know what, I'm going to take that up. Here's the plan I'm going to do. Let's make a roadmap, and boom, 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 really develop things. That's been incredibly satisfying to realize that these tools I can take old ideas that I had. A lot of like bands do that, where they'll go back when the next record comes. They're like, okay, let's go back and review the little song snippets that we had that we didn't really develop, and maybe we can develop those now. Same kind of thing, which I can go back to my archived kind of ideas and now actually give them a realizable form that I didn't feel I had the time or the capabilities to do, before. So yeah, it's something we have to watch out for, but it's also, if we do watch out for it, I think it can be super duper productive for us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's amazing. I've enjoyed our conversation so far. I want to ask you, shifting from just the conversation around AI, but to founding and entrepreneurship as a whole, for any entrepreneur that's listening right now, anyone who may be about to start, maybe already started, or who've been here forever, what's one concept or principle that they should absolutely focus on and master before any other?
Well, I think creativity, actually it's really being able to take your ideas and formulate them in some kind of way, articulate them even to yourself. And that might even come through things like meditation. And I found that, where you quiet yourself enough that you can actually hear yourself giving you information that you can use. But I think creativity is the thing for all of us, for starting out and then also going forward, is to keep getting new information from different sources so that we have new ideas. And that, I think reading is just an absolute superpower, and a lot of people don't really take advantage of it anymore. To sit down with a long form, a book, and actually take in that information. If you have the ability to do that, I think you can gather, and there's so many great books now, you can gather so much information, and because a lot of people don't do that, you can really have a leg up by just reading and reading constantly and a lot. It seems like the smartest people I've ever run into are avid readers and read from a broad range of things too. And then the idea of Edward de Bono was a creativity guru back in the 60s and 70s, a long time ago, and maybe the 80s. And he had a book called Lateral Thinking, where what you do is when you have a lot of different knowledge, you can take something from one field and then transfer it to another field, and that's a way to actually be creative. A lot of creativity isn't, where you come up with brand new ideas out of nowhere, but where you assemble different parts of things in a unique, new way and create a sort of a mosaic of ideas that then will solve a problem or something.
Absolutely.
So I think when you have creativity, then you can come up with ideas, and then because that's going to be the engine, like you say, 0 to 1. Everything has ways that it starts to develop. One, in the mind, we have that idea, right? First you have to have the idea, and then you have to figure out, how am I going to make that idea into something tangible, concretize it in some way. And so the entrepreneurship process is a lot about taking an idea and making it into something tangible that then people can use and you can sell or whatever. But before you can make something tangible, you have to have the idea. So ideation, I think is something that is really good to cultivate. And the way to do that is through always being curious, I think, and having lots of inputs, lots of different knowledge that you're constantly, whether it's through podcasts, audiobooks, books, movies, everything can then attribute to this mindscape that you develop, that then you have all of these different ideas to draw on, to take apart and put back together in novel ways.
Absolutely. Awesome. Amazing. What's one book that you would recommend someone should read, a founder should read?
Well, just off the top of my head, because we talked about, is that 0 to 1. I think that's a great book. It's written by Peter Thiel, and he was in that what they call the PayPal mafia. He was there was about 10 founders of PayPal, and when they sold PayPal to eBay, they all came off with like tens of millions of dollars, and so they suddenly all had this money. And then each one of those guys, like Reid Hoffman, went and started LinkedIn. Peter Thiel was the first outside investor in Facebook, and made a bunch of money that way. And now he has a company called Palantir, and he's really quite an entrepreneur. Elon Musk was part of that group.
Right. Yep.
And so it was all these guys that then went out and made more and more companies because suddenly they had these resources that they could redeploy. And he was teaching a course as a guest lecturer at Stanford. And there was a guy in the course, a student, who took really copious notes. And that guy's name was Blake Masters. And then he went on to run for Senate in Arizona a couple of years ago. And he showed the notes to Peter Thiel. And he said, and Thiel, being an entrepreneur, said, let's let's put these notes into, expand them out and let's make it a book. And that's the book, 0 to 1. And it's that concept of, that's the key thing, going from nothing to something. And it's almost like alchemy, right? That we're all kind of alchemists now, where we can take from nothing and create gold, like the old alchemists tried to aspire to. Now we can, we can take an idea, something that's ephemeral, and create it into something tangible that then can create a revenue source. So it's kind of like we can all be alchemists in a way in this day and age.
Yeah, that's a great point. Well, John, this was incredible. I've had a great time speaking with you today. Thank you so much for jumping on. Your ability to really simplify these complex business ideas is really unmatched. I can see MBA ASAP having a real impact on all the founders around the world. For anyone who does want to follow your work, read anything you've put out there, or really dive deeper into the MBA ASAP program, where can they find you?
Thanks, Abid. My website, MBA-ASAP.com, is a great place. And then there's a way to get on my, email list, and then I, talk to people. And also my email is just John, JOHN, at MBA-ASAP.com. Anyone can email me. I'm happy to talk with everybody. I have a Substack, MBA ASAP, where I put out my thoughts and things like that. I've just published my 69th book, so if you look up my name and MBA ASAP, or just my name and books, all those come up on Amazon. So there's a number of ways to get in touch. And I love talking with everybody, so I encourage anybody to just reach out and say hi. Thanks, Abid. Loved it.